Welcome to another exciting episode of In Depth and Out Loud with me, Dubbz. Today joining me is a very special guest, Zanele Mlangeni, who is all about making the workplace awesome through diversity, equality and inclusion. And I'm just so excited to have her here today because she is going to teach us something about studying towards something and you end up doing something else. I'm so excited to have you here, Zanele. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and it's a lovely pleasure to meet you.
So I want you to break it down for me. DEI, how did you start there, and was it something that you've always wanted to do? Because I know that initially it was about the numbers, you've got your degree in accounting. So give us a bit of a backstory there.
I don't think we've got the whole day in here because it's a long story, but I'll try to narrow it. I wanted to become a CA. I studied towards becoming a chartered accountant, and in varsity I decided in my third year that that's not for me, right? Auditing felt boring. I had the privilege of being able to do articles and stuff during my school holidays, during varsity holidays. So I went to work at an accounting firm and got experience of the whole auditing field. And I thought, this is too boring, repetitive for me. I'm not doing this. So I changed course a little bit and did the management accounting route, got my qualification in accounting. Then I started working as a consultant in one of the big four companies. That's where DI was introduced to me for the first time. I was actually a consultant on a project when Triple BE was first launched.
Okay.
And yeah, after a while I was like, but this doesn't make sense to me. I want numbers. I'm hungry for numbers.
You're a numbers girl.
Yeah,
this is what I studied.
Like, but this is what I want to do. I left that company and I joined another company where I was doing numbers, and it was nice. But it didn't quite hit the spot, right? It was every month I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing income statements and I'm reporting on this, and it started getting boring. I could
ledger account.
Yes, with my eyes closed. I'm like, I'm out. And you know, my biggest passion was also to be in the banking industry. So I pursued that, and I landed a role in the current company that I'm in, which is Absa. Did accounting in that space for a good 4 years. 4 years in, I started itching again because give me stuff that stimulates me and, you know, pushes me. Started itching and I got offered a role as a chief of staff to the head of wealth management, which was something new,
lovely,
exciting and different. And I took that with arms wide open, right? It was a strategic role, building strategy around the business, helping the head, you know, think about how to make money for the business and so on. And there was a big component also of the numbers. So that wasn't left behind. So I was able still to leverage my skills and expertise from a numbers perspective. And after 4 years, I got bored again, started itching, right?
The itching doesn't stop.
The itching doesn't stop. You have to keep me stimulated.
Yeah.
And it was then that I got a call from the investment banking business, and they said to me, oh, you come highly recommended and we think you'll be a perfect fit for this role. I'm like, okay, that sounds exciting. Sure, tell me more. They said it's in HR. I said, no, thanks, bye, I'm not interested. And then lady said to me, no, please, just go and hear the person out, have the conversations, and you come very highly recommended, your work ethic is commendable, and we just go and speak to them. So I went and I had a chat with the hiring manager, and I walked away going, I suppose it won't hurt to try the space out. Let's see what's in here. My role initially when I joined the HR team in the investment banking space was from a strategic and operational point of view. I was supposed to come in to provide strategic guidance on, you know, the operations and really how to improve our processes and make the colleague experience so much better and put our brand out there, you know. Being me, I fidget a lot, I get restless. I found things that were not working. Found a lot of things that were not working. One of them was around skills development. It was around employment equity. So those pieces were not coming together, and we were constantly, you know, missing our targets on an annual basis. So I went in there, spoke to the heart of me, numbers. I was playing around with the numbers, figuring out, and then it suddenly became my thing. There was us Zanele. I'm like, how is this my role? You know, so I kind of landed into the role like that because I was open to the challenge.
You were curious as well.
Curious, yeah. And the more I dug into it, the more I found that, hey, there's actually so much to do, and it's actually such a critical aspect of every working environment. And yeah.
And now you're the lead.
I'm the lead.
So you lead DEI. That is absolutely incredible. Tell me though, how does DEI and well-being mean in the workplace? What does it mean in the workplace? And why is it so important for the good company culture?
Oh, absolutely. So someone once explained DEI to me in such a nice way, and I'm going to try break it down in that similar format, right? So,
but wait, do we say DEI or do we say DI?
DEIB now.
Aha.
It's diversity, equity, inclusion,
and well-being.
And belonging.
Belonging.
And then there's the well-being part of it. So my role is like this big. It's huge. So we call it DEEB. It's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Mm-hmm. Diversity is being invited to a party, right? It's being invited to a party. You don't know who's going to be at the party, but it's just a party with lots of people there. You're invited as a guest. Equity is about accessibility, being able to access not just the entrance of the place, but the space around, have equal opportunity to access every point in the party. And inclusion is about being asked to dance, right? You're being included now, you're part of the thing. And belonging is choosing a song, dancing to your favorite song. So when you think about it in the work context, it's exactly that, right? You come into a work space where there are people from all backgrounds, different age groups as well. And when you're sitting around the table, irrespective of your race, gender, color, your contribution matters. You feel part of the family, you feel part of the solution that's being crafted, you belong in that space. And the well-being component of it is, if I feel I'm included, my well-being is also taken care of, right? I feel I'm in an environment where I can thrive, I can bring my best and authentic self into the space. But we find that in most cases that people don't feel that they're part of a unit or part of a team. Certain things, experiences that they come across make them feel excluded, i.e. when you contribute, nobody really takes note. They'll rather say, oh, but Zanele, and you would have said the same thing Zanele said. And then when it comes to learning opportunities, other people get preference over you. Those things start eating away at you as a person, your self-esteem, your confidence, and ultimately get into spaces where you are burnt out or not happy in the space that you're in. That impacts on your overall health and well-being, right? So I think it's a nice play or integration of the two roles to actually put them together in an organization, because you get to solve for the ecosystem.
Absolutely. I also think that equality is quite a big problem in a lot of companies, just in terms of how others are treated and how some can even, get special treatment. And it happens a lot. And I must be honest with you that it does mess with your well-being. It does mess with your mental health. Feeling like I work here, but I don't feel like I am part of the company or part of the team. And I think that can also contribute to how you do your job. I think, you start lacking, and you drag yourself now when you have to get up and go to work because you're annoyed, and it starts feeling like a toxic environment. So, I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and it's a need for every single company. You also, touched on being appreciated. I was speaking about this actually with a colleague of mine to say, sometimes it's not even about a raise. Ne? It's just about saying, you know what, thank you.
Yes.
You're doing a great job.
Yes.
And that goes such a long way, I think. And I don't know, but it's such a struggle. What are some of the things that you do for the company that can also assist the employer to do better at equality, at well-being, and making sure that the employees feel included?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Dubbz. True, there's so much that we're doing, and it's still work in progress, right? We're moving slow in my perspective, and I suppose some of the colleagues will share the same perspective that there is progress, but it's at a slow pace. But for me, it's at least we're moving, we're not standing.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. So from an equality perspective, we as South Africa, we're governed by legislation, right? We've got the BBBE Act that was promulgated a couple of years ago. And, every organization, particularly, let me speak about the financial services sector. We have a financial services charter that outlines how, the representation of your colleagues should look like, your employees should look like. So there are specific guidelines and targets that we have to meet. And those guidelines and targets are in line with what we call EAP. It's the economically active population of South Africa. So just based on our population stats, we know that Africans are high representation, followed by coloreds, Indians, and then the whites. And if you look at corporate SA, it was predominantly white, right? So we're trying to include everyone. And when we say include everyone, it's not just purely focused on Africans, but we're looking at even our non-South Africans that are living in the country. We're making the environment inclusive for all, that everybody has an equal opportunity. And we're not looking at equality from a race perspective only, but also from a gender, right? Because if you think about...
And with gender, that's another conversation altogether.
Right? And it's stereotypes, right? Yeah. Stereotypes that go back years, where women have been struggling for years to earn big seats at the table.
Yes.
And we're certainly 1,000 steps ahead from 1956, but it's not at a faster pace. It's a slow pace, but we're not stopping. We keep pushing the agenda. We keep pushing the inclusion, and in pushing that, what are we doing? We are assigning development initiatives, training initiatives to females. So when there are things out there, we prioritize female versus males. Our hiring policies we've built in principles into our hiring policies where we explicitly say that of the hires you make, at least X% must be women. And at least X% must be African.
Yes, ma'am.
You see, so this is how we are driving this and trying to, for lack of a better word, enforce change. Because if you don't put things and measures in place, we're not going to change. We'll keep talking about wanting to do right.
You're not going to get there.
But we're never going to get there.
So, how sometimes employees will have something that they want to say, like they want to speak up, they want to express a concern. But in most cases, they are afraid that if they do, they might either, find themselves in trouble or even lose their job. A lot of things happen at different companies, different policies, but a lot of people do not have the gees in them to speak up. So how does the company make sure that employees feel safe to speak up and also take care of their mental health?
It's a very good question. And it's something that we struggle with. It's the concept of psychological safety. Right? For colleagues to feel comfortable to speak up, we need to create environments and spaces that are psychologically safe for them.
Yes.
So we encourage open dialogue, honest and open conversations, and it's easier said than done, right? But that's why we've got structures in place, I guess, from a DIB perspective, where we've got different committees within that framework. So let me give you an example. We've got a committee called Banking on Women. So that drives the agenda of women. Then we've got a committee called the Employment Equity Forum. So that drives all employment equity related queries from hiring to promotions to name it, fair labor practices. We've got another one that looks at multicultural and people living with disability. We've got an LGBTQIA+. We've got a forum that looks at the progeny, which is your generational inclusion.
Yes.
So those committees, we use those as channels also for colleagues to channel some of concerns in cases where they feel that, I'm too scared to speak up. I might get victimized. I'm too scared to speak up because I might get penalized. I won't get a bonus, or I'll get a crappy bonus, So we've got platforms like a whistleblowing, where it's anonymous. You can go and lay a complaint if you've got that. So we do have platforms and channels that colleagues can use in the event that they feel scared. But what we encourage is that speak directly to the person. have the conversation. And when it doesn't work out, then follow the channels to get the support.
That's really interesting to learn, Zanele, because for the longest time, and I think you know this as well, when we speak of HR in a company, we always say, and I think we've been taught that way, that the HR within a company is for the company. It's not really for the employees.
For the people.
For the people. So whatever the outcome is, it will always benefit the employer. So I'm so glad that I'm hearing that you have all these committees in place to assist with this. But what do you have to say, though, about that saying that I think we all know this, especially when you start working, you'll hear people tell you, yeah, even if you can go to HR,
it's not going to help.
It's not going to help because HR is always on the side of the company.
Yes.
They're there for the company.
Yes. And it still exists to this day, right? We still hear colleagues that go, what's the point? I can't talk to HR because they're going to side with my line manager anyway. And I must be honest, I also had the same perception when I was outside, right? When you're on the outside, you're like, what's the point?
Yes.
Let me deal it on my own. Actually, let me leave. It's better off that I go somewhere else. But you come across the same challenges and the same issues in another company. So I suppose being inside and really understanding processes and procedures that govern the HR practices, you get to understand how things are done, and then what are the right channels. So if colleagues are following the right channels and going about it the right way, the outcomes will favor them if they've been unfairly discriminated, or if they're not treated well, or if they've been bullied. Full-on investigations are launched. We've had instances where colleagues have been dismissed because they've treated another colleague unfairly, or harassed another colleague, or bullied another colleague. So this is taken serious, and there's hearings that go into place. So it's not that HR will always side with the business. No, we have to do what is right for the people that we serve.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you're saying that. You are the lead, and I trust what you're saying, and I will take it to heart.
Please do.
So what I've also just noticed from our conversation is your approach is holistic, which is absolutely amazing. So how does the company make sure that DEI and well-being are part of everything? So from hiring to how employees are treated and also helped in their careers.
Yeah. So I guess it starts with it being a strategic imperative, right? It's a strategic agenda. It used to be at the bottom there of the strategy, priorities, but it's actually moved to the top, where without the people, you can't make the money. Absolutely. As an organization, right? So what is the point of putting them at the bottom of your priorities, and your number one priority is to make money? Your people should matter. And I remember challenging our CEO in one of we've got what we call quarterly town halls, where, the CEO addresses us on how we've been performing,
yes,
what are objectives, all these beautiful things that we're going to drive. And number 5 out of the top 5 priorities was people. And I put my hand up and I was like, wouldn't it be nice if people moved to the top? Because, and it's like, no, it's in no particular order. I'm like, but it would be nice if we actually spoke about people first, because you take care of the people, they will take care of the profits. So in doing that, we've got talent management practices that ensure that there is diversity, that there is inclusion in the succession planning. So we have to plan for when Zanele leaves this role to move on to another role. Who is going to take over from me? And have I done the right things to groom the person that we've identified to take over me? Have we equipped them enough, developed them enough to be able to take care of, or to assume the role in an event of an emergency? We've got hiring practices, as I mentioned earlier, where we stipulate guidelines from a hiring perspective, and try to also diversify the panels, or rather panelists that sit in interviews, right? Because sometimes we tend to lean to being biased when we make hiring selections. You connect with someone that looks more like you, but we're trying to do away with that.
Yes, you must.
Do away with that way. It's a diverse panel, diversity from a gender and a race perspective, to give other people fair opportunity.
I love the fact that you mention how you will identify someone and say, you know what, they are great. Let's groom this person to assume a role in a case of an emergency or in a case where the person resigns or is promoted. In fact, I was having this conversation, I think it was a month ago, and with a friend of mine, and I was saying they have a management position. I was saying, you know, it's important for you to not just focus on the greats of the company, but also start focusing on those that show potential.
Absolutely.
Because also, besides the fact that you always want to have somebody ready to step in, but also it's stimulating.
Yes.
Right? And also it keeps your employees excited and on top of things, and they take the company serious and they feel valued.
Exactly.
And it's a big thing, you know.
Exactly.
You spend so much time at work. What is it, 8 hours or more even?
More sometimes, yes.
So really, it's so important to feel happy when you're there, because otherwise mental health goes down.
Proper.
Well-being goes down. We're booking you in now because
Proper, eh?
you are not functioning.
Proper.
But this is what I want to ask you next. How does the company track the process and to say that, okay, you know what we have implemented is working out, and this is what we now need to do to improve? Do you have a system in place, a data system in place that allows you to track?
Yes, absolutely, we do. We've got a data system that we use to track our progress. I'll speak from an employment equity perspective,
Yes.
right? That's tracked on a monthly basis. So we agree and sign off targets annually, the beginning of the year, and then monthly it's tracked. We track our performance. How is our representation looking like? We've made hires this month. Is it in line? Oh, we're not in line. Sorry. What happened here?
Let's fix this.
Explain to us, why did you pick person X over person Y? You know, so even, I mean, we have, you know, annual audits that are done independently at a group level. So as a business, the corporate investment banking business, we are also held to account. We may have our own targets, but there's someone who's marking our homework. We don't sit and mark our own homework. They'll come in and say, okay, we hear you, you've done this, not bad, you've shifted a little bit, but it's not good enough. Let's see what you were doing when you were doing your promotion process.
Brilliant.
You've promoted 10 people. Of the 10 people, why is it only 4 are black?
Everyone is held accountable.
Everyone is held accountable. So we track those things, we measure those things on a monthly basis.
That's amazing. So this now means that you deal a lot with the bosses, with the managers, and you have lots of conversations with them. And I'm sure
Difficult conversations.
Yeah, difficult conversations. And I'm sure, because this is quite a new thing. And I think transitioning as well, tendencies. People have tendencies, and now you need to change a mindset. And I always say changing a mindset is a very difficult thing, especially a mindset of an adult. You know, it's always easier when it's a child, but with an adult, I find it gets really challenging. So what do bosses and managers do to make sure that everybody feels included and taken care of? And how do they get help to do this well? Because we know that they're also going through a tough time, isn't it?
Very true, very true. Your questions are very tricky, eh?
I'm bringing the HR out in you. I'm bringing out the HR. The HR for the people, not for the company.
People, yes. So what do we do to support our leaders? I suppose let's address the first part of your question.
Yes.
In terms of, you know, how do you change a fixed mindset? I met that when I first started this journey, when I got into the HR space, right? I would go to the executive committee and speak about these numbers. Yeah, okay, we hear you. Then I'm dismissed. How? Okay. Then I come back 6 months later. Guys, we haven't moved. You're doing nothing.
What is happening?
You know, what is happening? And we had this conversation, right? And, you know, what I noticed was, to get the message across, I actually need to speak to their hearts and their minds. And what does that look like? Let me bring it down, right, a level down, because I think what I was putting in front of them was, guys, from a regulatory and compliance perspective, this is what we need to do. We've got to do it. But not actually saying to them, okay, guys, let's have a look at our overall landscape. This is what it looks like. And this is why we're wanting to do this. We're not wanting to do this because we want you to just hire black people and not hire white people. We're not doing that. We say we want an environment that is diverse. And what are the benefits of having a diverse environment? What are the benefits of that? Highlighting to them what it is that we stand to achieve and gain by diversifying our workforce, and then showing them how can we get to the end goal. It's a big goal to reach, right? And I'm not saying to them do it today. I'm saying, okay, I've broken it down for you. This is what we need to do to get there. And that's how I was able to speak.
So the approach had to completely change. That's incredible. Well done, by the way. So can you give me examples of things the company has done that have worked well to make things fairer and also to help employees feel better?
I'll highlight one thing, which I think is key to everyone who's an employee, right?
Yes.
Fair pay.
Oh, wow.
We went on I'm going to call it a initiative or /drive in 2022, when the organization took a stance and said, guys, we've got to review the salaries we pay people. Let's understand, are we paying fairly to people that are doing the same job on the same level? And where that wasn't the case, it was adjusted and realigned. So there were a lot of people whose salaries were adjusted in 2022 to align. And that for me was, it was a great step and a great achievement that the organization has done and owned up to and identified that actually, guys, we haven't been implementing fair practices. Let's start by paying our people right.
That is amazing. I think a lot of people will want a bit of you, Zanele, to say, hey, Bo, let's talk about the salary issue. A conversation for another day.
Yes.
But before I sign you off, here's a question I have for you. This is the last one.
Okay.
What tips do you have for students who want to work in this area?
Look, there's no set criteria to get into this. And I guess I'll speak in terms of getting into a career in its entirety. I think pursue what you're most passionate about, and drive that. I found that my passion was in doing the accounting, the numbers, but the deeper passion lied in me helping people. My mom always thought I was going to be a teacher, right? And I was like, yeah, it's great, I want to do that, but there's no money. So I went back where the money was. I was like, I'm doing accounting. But even during my tenure, in the finance field, that element still came out strongly. This thing of wanting to help, wanting to contribute and make a difference was always in me. And that's how I found myself in this role. So don't pick a role that, just because it's driven by financial benefits, but it's got to be something that you're passionate about and you want to make an impactful contribution.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Zanele, thank you so much for joining me today. I am learned. I can now walk around saying that HR is not for the company, it is also for the people. So there we go. I think Zanele gave us such incredible insight. Go for what you're passionate about. Until next time.